South Africa was ranked a few years ago as number 62 out of 124 countries by the World Tourism Council for Competitiveness. So it's not a very good ranking for South Africa, and it's not boding well ahead of the World Cup.
That is actually very true, Lerato. What we have actually done as a department, we actually commissioned the research to begin to reassess the levels and actually understand where the gaps are in terms of delivering excellent service. And the research findings actually pointed out to the direction that says we actually have a huge challenge when it comes to public sector in terms of excellent service. Within your private sector, there are pockets here and there where you are able to get an excellent service, but there's a problem of inconsistency. So what the plan that we have now on the table is to actually try and come up with readiness seminars so as to motivate, especially your frontline staff, to become ready. Number one, to understand why is it important for us to provide excellent service to customers.
Right.
Number two, what are the benefits that one would derive out of serving, out of providing a good service. Right. Because the intention for us really as we begin to prepare for 2010 and even beyond is to begin to turn the visitors to become our ambassadors, so that when they go back to their countries of origin, they can actually begin to spread the good word about the experience that they have enjoyed in the country.
I think your program sounds like a noble gesture, but some people would argue it's late in coming, because the whole question of poor standards in South Africa is an ongoing problem. It's been something that tourists have lamented for years in terms of coming to this country. The hotel infrastructure, the restaurant infrastructure, the transport infrastructure is great, but the people suck, to put it bluntly. Frontline staff don't smile. Their turnaround times in terms of just getting basic things done is very, very slow. Anecdotally, I can tell you of my recent stay in Durban at a 5-star hotel, but it was a new boutique hotel. And what happened to one of the residents is their curtains fell, and the manager couldn't take an executive decision to move this couple to another room because she didn't feel she had the authority, didn't know what to do, and they were prepared to have paying clients sleep in a hotel room for a night without curtains. That's just anecdotally some of the things you experience.
That is actually quite true. In terms of the readiness seminars that we are going to conduct in partnership with the Disney Institute, which is actually a world-renowned institute in terms of excellent service, we are actually targeting training the frontline staff first, especially in preparation for 2010, where frontline staff could actually begin to appreciate the importance of serving people and serving people better. We are not only looking at the private sector, we are looking at the whole tourism value chain, starting at your car rental services, looking at your airport staff, looking at your hospitality industry, even looking at your petrol attendants themselves, the banking sector, and looking even at the public sector itself, like your Department of Home Affairs. If you look at your port of entries, how do we begin to receive visitors at such port of entries? So it's a whole initiative that is targeted at the whole tourism value chain to begin to change the mindset, so that people can begin to appreciate and understand the importance of serving people better.
What sort of things tangibly are you going to be dealing with? Some people will say what's important is service with a smile. South Africans are not very good at that one. But others would say, you know, it's just managing contingencies. We've just had power cuts in Johannesburg. A restaurant must still be able to run irrespective of that situation. So it's either getting a backup system or finding an innovative way of dealing with that kind of crisis.
Okay. With regards to issues of power cuts, what we have done as the industry and as a department, we actually conducted workshops, that was last year, to begin to engage the industry, to begin to come up with a plan of how do we then, what is it that we need to do in terms of actually addressing issues of power cuts. So what happened was that the department, in partnership with FEDASA, ESCOM and Energy, we conducted those regional workshops, and basically we were actually saying what alternative measures can you come up with in terms of addressing such situations? The call out really to the business out there is that let us develop an energy plan which would be part of your corporate strategy and which will also be part of your environmental management plan, so that we don't actually fold our arms and say the light is out and we don't have any backup means.
Viv, what do you have to say about this? Am I being wholly unfair in saying that services in South Africa, the standards are really poor? You hear it all the time as people leave the country. Beautiful country, great infrastructure, but people are just not doing things right.
Oh yes, I mean, if you've ever traveled to Europe or to the US, even to Asia in some cases, you'd find that the level of service, not, as you mentioned, it's that smile that you get when you go into a place. It's lacking in South Africa in a certain extent. And I don't know how you would actually go about changing that in the short run. I mean, how would you convince someone to smile at a person coming through the door? That's going to be something that has to be natural, or takes years to learn, or maybe, I don't know. But my concern would be, for instance, I mean, we're getting some really negative kind of, especially nowadays in the days of Twitter, in the days of these kind of global media kind of things out there. We had a couple incidents recently with Lance Armstrong in the country. He had a problem with the customs officials. We had Richard Quest come through and he had a problem with SAA. And these are the kinds of things that actually are quite negative for the country in terms of, just getting things out there.
I think Bulelwa should answer that one. But in terms of Lance Armstrong, we must be fair. He didn't have he hadn't made sufficient preparations to come to South Africa, didn't have a visa, didn't have enough pages in his passport, so the customs officials were doing their jobs, and so we need that leeway. The tourists must play their part, and then we must play our part. But just in terms of resolving some of those issues and the perceptions that South Africans aren't very efficient and are quite happy to inconvenience the traveller.
I think what is of critical importance for us is to understand that there are good quality that we actually have as South Africans. Like, for example, embedded in us is one of the best qualities of Ubuntu. But we need to start and build on that. So these workshops really, they are meant to actually to create an understanding so that we know who the customer is, so that we know how best to serve the customer. And I think another important issue here is around the whole culture of South Africans themselves becoming not able to complain when they receive a bad service. As South Africans, we need to be upfront and be up there and complain when we don't get a service. But I think what I also need to mention here is the fact that besides the training sessions that we're going to have right now, in terms of implementing the whole strategy, we are going to look at other pillars. For example, one of the important pillars is the pillar of creating awareness, so that people, they become aware that it is within their right to receive a service. So that people become aware that if they don't receive a service, they need to give feedback, so that people become aware that it's just not on not to render a good service.